the celebration in Israel. Jared Kushner said something to me was amazing to me. I cannot understand what he said. But here is I want to know your take on what he
Sure.
said. Here is the clip of Jared Kushner.
Couldn't be more proud to see the way that the state of Israel and its people have carried themselves through this traumatic, unthinkable, horrific experience. Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for.
Yeah, I cannot.
Yeah, he hadn't been paying attention. You know, he's another broken Trump promise, because Trump promised he wasn't going to have anything to do in this administration. Now he's bringing him back in. Yeah, they want the Abraham Accords, and what's fascinating, and I know this from multiple sources, all the Zionists in the United States, they genuinely believe, oh yeah, Israel, the Hamas is now completely isolated, and all the Arabs are lining up. They can't wait to work with Israel. And you want to say, what the hell are you people talking about? The barbarism that has been committed has been by these Zionists, by Israel, over the course of the last 24 months. You know, the images of burned, mutilated, dead children are forever, seared into my brain. And it's, Israel has shown no mercy whatsoever to the Palestinians, just the opposite. It has been a campaign of genocide. And, Kushner lives in his little fantasy world, and, has bought into the propaganda. Sad, but, this is we're witnessing today the sort of, I call deja vu all over again. It was, let's see, we're now 10 months. So it was 9 months ago, we were witnessing these images of Palestinians being released from prison. Hey! And hostages being turned over. Yay! Then it went away. And many of the Palestinians who'd been released from prison were rearrested and shoved back into prison. The fundamental issue has not been addressed, and that is this Zionist belief that they're entitled to all of this land, and that the Palestinians are Amalek. They must be removed or destroyed, or both.
Do these people really think that they're helping Israel and Israeli people? Because after all, if you love, as they pretend, Kushner is just pretending that not pretending, he really loves Israel. But when you love a country, you have to be honest with them. You're not going to wrap the reality with something else. You have to tell them you've been committing genocide. That's why we're doing this. And why do they need to behave this way, Larry? Cannot Is there any sort of honesty on their part, on these people in the United States who are not Israelis, who are part of the Jewish community, Zionist community, but they're not honest about what's going on in the Middle East?
Well,
Somehow they feel that they're helping Israel.
Yeah, they start with a belief, and it's been, it's especially prevalent among the Christian evangelicals, and I understand it. I was raised, I grew up within a religious community that put a lot of emphasis up on the fact that what we were seeing happen in Israel was a fulfillment of prophecy. The Holy Scriptures are coming alive. This is preparing the way for the return of Jesus. And this entire idea of a battle of Armageddon and an apocalypse and the end of the, you raised with that, and it's like putting on rose-colored glasses. You see everything in through that particular lens. It's only when you take those glasses off and you stop looking at the world that way that all of a sudden you see something completely different. So, this is uh, within the I'll call it the religious Jewish community. They have the different view of the end of the world and the coming of the Messiah, because they don't accept Jesus as the Messiah who's already come. So the Messiah is still supposed to come to save the Jews. And you have a similar eschatology within the Islamic world.
Mm.
And the problem is you get all these people with fervent, deep religious faith, and they each believe that their own version of how the world's going to end is true. And that generates conflict right there. And you trust me, you can't have a rational, in, intelligent discussion about this. This is emotion, man. This runs deep into people's souls, and to even question it, that it really causes a dissonance. So, um, the 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 belief is that these Palestinians, who actually are probably the actual descendants of what was known as the original 12 tribes of Israel genetically, um, they have to be eliminated. And, what really bugs me are these people say, well, none of the Arab and the Arab nations, Muslim nations will take these Palestinians. So uh, it's like, well, why should they take them? That's their home that they're in. They don't need to vacate their home. But most of the world just goes along with it and has basically accepted this genocide over the last 24 months. Only the Houthis have stood up and fought on behalf of the Palestinians. Everyone else is giving lip service, if that.
At the same celebration, gathering, we had Steve Witkoff talking about Netanyahu, and the crowd was just
Yeah.
booing Netanyahu. Yeah,
Boo. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Why does the Trump administration and Steve Witkoff and everybody in the Trump administration, they're trying so hard to defend Netanyahu and his administration, specifically Netanyahu?
Yeah.
What is the game on their part?
I don't know if Netanyahu's got blackmail information on Trump or what. Again, this may go back to the Epstein case. But Witkoff himself is a confirmed Zionist, and Trump has bought into the whole. He's had a long relationship, and I think some of it has been financial. Certainly, I mean, we saw that with money provided by the widow of Sheldon Adelson. But it is Trump is going out of his way to try to protect Netanyahu, and I think Netanyahu will go down in history as one. He'll be right up there with Pol Pot and the Mao and others that are viewed as mass murderers, because he's presided over the mass murder of Palestinians.
Today, Donald Trump asked the president of Israel to pardon Netanyahu. And I don't know if he has this sort of, power in Israel to do that. Do we know if the president of Israel can pardon Netanyahu?
I don't know. Good question. I'm not schooled in.
Because if he was in that position, he would have done it before. He didn't need.
But you would think. Netanyahu's not that popular, but we shouldn't confuse Netanyahu's lack of popularity with the fact that the majority now, even more people now in Israel support getting rid of the Palestinians than was the case 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, you still had a number of Israelis living there who have since left. You know, the Israelis who opposed the genocide, they've left the country. They've gone to other places.
Larry, when it comes to this fundamental question about Israel, which, in my opinion, would be, can peace be imposed in Israel? Is Israel capable of making peace, in your opinion?
No, you've got 800,000 settlers that are invading the West Bank and taking property from Palestinians. To stop them would create a civil war within Israel. They would fight against the Israeli Defense Force. So Israel has just decided to let them go and to take control of the country, which is what they're going to do. That's why this whole peace, Trump's peace plan it's just a mirage. It's an illusion. Yeah, we got, here we're in phase one. They're going to release hostages and prisoners. That'll happen. But then when it comes to phase two, the notion that Hamas, and it's not just Hamas, besides Hamas, there are 13 other groups, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Abu Nidal is still around, or a group bearing his name. And, I don't recall all the other names, but there are, a total of 14 groups. And they each have some military capability. So to give up their arms, the other thing that's actually taking place right now is Hamas has security forces, and they are now going after these Palestinian collaborators, the ones who were bought and paid for by Israel, and helping betray Palestinian leadership. So they're taking them out and killing them now. So that's going on. The odds that they will get an effective disarmament of Hamas, I don't see it. I could be proven wrong, but I doubt it. And the same thing with on the other side of the equation is the settlers and the Ben Gvir and Smotrich community. They're not going to give up on taking full control of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and destroying it and rebuilding the temple, because rebuilding the temple, the Jewish temple, is critical to their whole end of the world scenario. So, there is the idea would be for Israel to say, okay, look, we recognize the Palestinians are human beings. They are people like we are. They are loved by God as we claim to be loved by God. And therefore we'll let them live in peace. They'll have their territory. Not an open air prison, which is what Gaza has been. And the West Bank, which is the West Bank is supposed to be entirely for the Palestinians, and the Jewish settlers keep encroaching on it. And the world condemns them and imposes some sanctions, but they continue to get away with it.